Picture a world where the Mongols never lose. Baghdad still smolders. Europe waits its turn. And an army that has crushed everything from the Pacific to Persia is riding straight toward Egypt. No one has stopped them. No one has even slowed them down. But in a narrow desert valley in 1260, something impossible is about to happen. A force the Mongols never saw coming. A weapon they couldn't outrun. And a single battle that shatters the myth of their invincibility forever. The year is 1260, and for 4 decades, the Mongols have moved like a living catastrophe. They've erased kingdoms, burned cities, and left millions dead. Every army that tried to face them broke. Every capital that resisted was annihilated. Their rise began 50 years earlier in the windswept steppe of Mongolia. A man named Temujin united the fractious tribes and took the name Genghis Khan. He didn't build an army. He engineered one. Mongol children learned to ride before they could walk. They grew up hunting, fighting, and navigating harsh landscapes where only the strongest survived. Their discipline bordered on brutality. If one soldier fled, the other 9 in his unit were executed. If 100 ran, 1,000 died. And they wielded terror as consciously as they wielded bows. When the Persian city of Merv resisted, they slaughtered almost the entire population. News spread faster than their horses. Cities surrendered without a fight, choosing humiliation over extinction. By 1258, the Mongols had reached Baghdad, the intellectual heart of the Islamic world. Its caliph assumed God would save him. God didn't. The Mongols breached the walls in 2 weeks. They killed hundreds of thousands. The House of Wisdom, one of the greatest libraries ever built, was dumped into the Tigris River until the water ran black with ink, with Persia and Iraq under Mongol control. Hulagu Khan had one last target, Egypt. If Egypt fell, there would be nothing left between the Mongol Empire and Africa. And nothing between Hulagu and Europe. The world braced for collapse. Egypt wasn't ruled by kings in silk robes. It was ruled by warriors who had been forged through a harsh system of their own, the Mamluks. They were boys taken from the Caucasus and Turkic steppes, sold into slavery, and trained in Egypt as elite soldiers. They learned to ride, shoot, and fight with a precision that rivaled the Mongols themselves. When they came of age, they were freed and formed a military aristocracy built entirely on merit, not birth. One of them was Baibars. Captured as a child by Mongol raiders, sold, beaten, and nearly discarded because of a cataract in one eye, he rose through sheer brilliance. He became a commander feared even among his own men for his intensity and tactical mind. Egypt's ruler, Sultan Qutuz, knew the Mongols were coming. Hulagu had already sent envoys demanding surrender. Qutuz executed them and hung their bodies at the city gate. It was a point of no return. The Mamluks marched north. To reach the Mongols, they needed to pass through Crusader territory. The Crusader lords had every reason to refuse, but they had also seen what the Mongols did to Baghdad. They finally agreed to let the Mamluks pass as long as they swore neutrality. It was a tense alliance built on fear, not trust. By the summer of 1260, the Mamluk army crossed into Palestine. Baibars rode among them, calm, collected, focused. One young soldier asked him if he was afraid. Baibars told him fear was a tool the Mongols used before the battle. Began, but it only worked if you believed they couldn't bleed, and he intended to prove they could. The Mongol general Kitbuka waited with around 20,000 men. He expected another easy victory. The Mongols preferred open ground where their cavalry could maneuver freely and execute their signature feigned retreat. Baibars knew this. He had studied every story about Mongol battles. He understood their rhythm, their arrogance, their hunger to chase a fleeing enemy. So he chose the field of battle himself. The valley of Ain Jalut lay in the hills of Galilee, a rough rectangle surrounded by rocky slopes. Not a narrow canyon, but tight enough to disrupt Mongol maneuvers. Baibars proposed something bold. They would use the Mongols' favorite trick against them. The main Mamluk force would hide in the hills. Baibars would lead a forward force into the valley. He would attack, withdraw just enough to make it look genuine, and lure the Mongols deep into the trap. Qutuz asked if he was truly willing to lead the bait force. Baibars nodded. "The men trust me," he said. "I know how to retreat without breaking." On the morning of September 3rd, the valley shimmered with heat. Baibars' men lined up in silence. He told them exactly one thing: follow the signals and trust that Qutuz would come. By mid-morning, Kitbuka appeared. He saw what looked like a portion of the Mamluk army standing exposed in a valley that limited their escape. He attacked immediately. Arrows darkened the sky. Horses thundered. Baibars launched rapid charges, pulling back and striking again. Dust rose in clouds. The Mongols pressed harder, sensing another easy conquest. Then Baibars gave the signal. His line broke into a controlled retreat. Exactly what the Mongols expected. Exactly what they wanted. Kitbuka ordered the full pursuit. The Mongols poured into the valley. And that's when the hills exploded. The hidden Mamluk forces charged down, slamming into the Mongol flanks. The valley became a funnel. The Mongol cavalry, normally fluid and deadly, was boxed in by terrain and surrounded by soldiers who fought like reflections of themselves. The trap snapped shut. Qutuz rode straight into the chaos, shouting, "O Islam!" And the Mamluks surged around him, hammering the Mongol center. Kitbuka fought to the end. But the end was unavoidable. By afternoon, the Mongol army was collapsing. People ask what weapon defeated the Mongols at Ain Jalut. Was it a new technology? A miracle tactic? Divine intervention? The answer is simpler and far more human. The secret weapon was the Mamluks themselves. These soldiers were trained from childhood with the same intensity as Mongol warriors. They matched them in speed, stamina, archery, and cavalry tactics. They were built on discipline, loyalty, and shared hardship. And they had Baibars, a commander who understood the Mongols better than they understood him. A Mamluk training manual from the era describes what a soldier had to master. Dozens of lance techniques, sword strikes from horseback, firing accurate arrows at full gallop, reading terrain like a map, surviving long marches on little food or water. Absolute trust in the man riding beside you. This was the weapon the Mongols never expected, an army built in their image, trained to fight exactly the kind of battle they excelled at, and led by someone who refused to fear them. By sunset, fewer than 2,000 Mongols escaped Ain Jalut. The rest were dead or captured. For the first time in living memory, the Mongol aura cracked. When the news spread, Cairo erupted in celebration. Damascus rose in revolt. Across the Islamic world, people who had braced for the end suddenly believed survival was possible again. Even in Europe, chroniclers wrote with relief. They had quietly hoped the Mongols would weaken the Muslim world. But deep down, they knew that if Egypt fell, nothing would stop the Mongols from turning west. Hulagu planned revenge. But a civil war erupted inside the Mongol Empire when his cousin Berk attacked him for destroying Baghdad. Hulagu never returned to fight the Mamluks. Ain Jalut became the turning point, the moment the unstoppable was stopped. The invincible proved mortal, and a slave soldier army saved the last gateway to civilization.